I've been looking for a house with no walls or no whispers, no hiding places, no secret sister. Been looking for a house that won't shelter a lie, no tear-stained past or reason to cry. I wanna live in a house of love.
Welcome to EWE, Empowering Women Everywhere. I am your host, Nan Gill, and today our guest is Adria Goldmann-Gross of MedWise Advocacy. Hi, Adria.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you for joining us. And Adria's been doing amazing work with advocacy for people with insurance. And she's going to talk a little bit about the work that she does.
So if people are having problems with medical bills, let's say they were denied, they're out of network, they're going nowheres, and very often there are overcharges also.
Right.
I've helped a lot of people, and in 3.5 years, I was up to $5 million in savings.
Wow.
And that I began in January of 2012. So this summer it was 5 million, and now I'm very close to 6 million. So it's been really amazing, and I'm honored to be able to help all these people.
Right, so if someone has a situation where they're having difficulty in getting insurance for their medical situation, they should give you a call and you can let them know what options are available.
Whenever someone calls me up, I always first talk about the case, and I get a feel of what the case is about. And from that, I tell the person whether or not I'll be able to help them. And if I feel that I can help them, I then discuss, what I could do for them, what I'll need from them, and how much my fee would be on that.
Right. And when you told me something about some attorneys that you just recently helped.
Right. So the middle of this summer, I was up to 5 million, and then these two attorneys, within 2 weeks, and this was a recent case, two totally separate attorneys. They involved some type of injury. It was spinal work, and I reduced the bills, the two bills. One was over $370,000, another one was over $270,000. The one for $370,000, I reduced it down to $15,000.
Wow.
And the one for around $270,000, I reduced that down to $29,000.
So really, basically, if you want to know, she's a magician. She's able to reduce depending on the case, of course, but, and how did you get involved with doing this work?
Well, after I had brain surgery for epilepsy,
Okay.
which was caused by encephalitis at the age of 11 and a half.
Oh my goodness.
And I lived with it for close to 25 years. I used to average 18 seizures a month.
Oh my goodness.
I then realized that I really wanted to go into a different area. I was in manufacturing before that. I was in the garment industry.
Uh-huh.
And I decided not to go back there, especially since most of the manufacturing was done overseas. So I decided to go into a different field, and I came in through the back door of an insurance company. They immediately put me in claims. Within 2 weeks, they taught me how to deny claims, and within 4 weeks, I was a claims supervisor.
Ah.
So I worked at that insurance company for a little over a year, and then the following, about 2 years, a year to 2 years later, they had relocated down to Virginia. And then I started working for another insurance company. And again, within a couple of weeks, they taught me how to deny.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a way for the insurance company to save money.
Right.
So I worked there for quite a few years. I was in...
So you were actually employed and learned how to deny claims.
Right.
So it would be natural for you to know what to circumvent to be able to get the
Right.
claim paid.
So like even when there was a case against them, the claim had been denied, and now they have a case against them. In situations, sometimes I would get a phone call from the CEO of the insurance company saying to me, Adria, pay this claim.
Ah.
And I learned how they were able to encourage, I should say, the insurance company not to deny it but to pay it.
Okay.
So I really learned the
So you
ins
figured out why he was saying to pay this one and not that one.
right.
Okay.
And I learned how people really went to the insurance companies asking for payment after denials. I realized that. I learned that, and now I use that for my business.
To help.
Right.
To help people.
To help people, right.
Yep. Yep. So tell us some of the claims that you've taken care of. Can you not names or anything, but just specific situation?
Well, the first case that I worked on, which was recently published in
The Epic Times?
the Epic Times, the case where I was recently published in the Epic Times, I realized while I was in the midst of opening up an insurance, when I was in the midst of opening up a MedWise billing.
Right.
What happened is after I had worked at the two insurance
Right.
companies, I briefly worked for an agency and took off 6 years to take care of my adopted children from Vietnam.
Okay.
But then I thought, okay, I want to open up a business. So I thought about opening up a billing business.
Right.
And I opened it up 9 years ago, MedWise Billing. But the gentleman who helped me through SCORE to open up the billing business came back to me a year after I opened the business, and he says, Adria, I need some help. He had a case where he was in a restaurant that was supposed to be handicap accessible, which it was not, and he fell off his wheelchair.
Oh my goodness.
And he wound up in the hospital twice. And he had a case against the restaurant because it said handicap accessible, which it was not.
Right.
So he said to me, Adria, see if you can help me with this. I have $108,000 worth of bills here. And I don't think that I really owe all this money. So when I combed through the bills, which was literally about 25 to 26 lines per page, and I must have had about 30 pages to work with.
Right.
It took me well over 40 hours, but I reduced that bill from $108,000 to $22,000. And when that happened, that was my clue.
Right. That was
Right.
what hit it off.
Right.
that you wanted
And the
to-
article in Epic Times, which we can talk about later, he's one of the people who they wrote about in the article.
Right. Right.
So that was my clue of what I can do to help other people. So I opened up the billing business, and then things were changing.
I think when I met you, that's what you were doing. You were
Right.
doing billing.
Right. So at one point, I had 4 clients. I was working with 4 different groups of providers. And with all the laws that have been changing, a lot of the doctors are now becoming they're becoming hospitalists, or they become part of these large groups of doctors.
Right, yeah.
And even in our area here, we have a group of over 300 doctors.
Right.
So that really put an end to my billing business. I still do billing for one provider, and I do a lot of credentialing for providers, but the majority of my business is the advocacy. So I'm thinking of another case.
Now wait, you're a licensed you're
No.
a licensed insurance agent.
Broker. I'm a licensed
Broker.
insurance broker and consultant.
Okay.
So I have the 2 different licenses through the state of New York.
Right.
And I think that what helps me is I have been in this industry now for over 25 years, and it's really helped me to understand what goes on both ends. Owning a billing business and see how the claims are submitted,
Right.
and the problems that the providers have,
Mhm.
which there's a lot of that because they get denied claims.
Right.
They get claims where the insurance company's not paying it. And then previously working for 2 insurance companies, working with claims for them, I really learned the ins and outs of the industry.
Right. You
And
learned what you can
what I
you
can do to
ask
help
for
others.
and
Right.
what you can possibly get through.
Right.
So that's amazing.
So
from
I'll-
108,000 to 22,000.
Right. Then there was another case recently. I worked on this one. This is a very big case from last year. And it took many hours. It was involving one individual who had been in and out of hospitals. They only had travel insurance. They got travel insurance before they came to the United States. They couldn't purchase any other insurance when they came here. And the person himself did not have that much money. I knew what he still had in his hands, and he was not working. He was in his 80s.
Mm.
And what wound up happening is he had bills, they totaled about $228,000. And
From what?
it was $227,000. These were all these hospitals. 4 of them were major hospital bills.
Right.
And then, we had anesthesiologists and other types of care, blood work. It was a mix of all different types of providers. But what happened was, it was about 20 providers. I called each one of them, and I was able to reduce his bills from $227,000 down to $7,000.
Oh my goodness.
And then a family member of his came to me afterwards, and he had a bill for $32,000, which I was also able to get down to $0.
Oh my goodness.
Right.
Okay.
And that was a really interesting case. Here was a situation where
Well, I hope I never need you. That would be good if I never needed you. But
Right.
if I did need you, I'd really need you.
Right.
So it's great. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was
That's
just
okay.
thinking about myself.
Yeah, but I just want to say what happened in this situation is here was a doctor who knew he was out of network.
Right.
Okay. And the doctor says, "Oh, don't worry. This will work out. I'm going to have another doctor come in who has an agreement with your insurance company, and then I'll come in after he starts the surgery." So
Oh my goodness.
he comes in, he does the surgery, right?
Yeah.
And now he is not getting paid by my client's insurance company.
Right.
And this had been going on for a while. And I got in touch with the billing department who worked for this doctor.
Right.
And I said to him, "Okay, this is what I want you to do." I told him how to submit the bill. And so anyhow, he submitted the bill to the state. And the state says to him, "We're not going to accept that bill because you are not the patient." So I said, "Okay, let me see what I could do."
Right.
The same thing happened to me. The state is so overloaded now,
Right.
because the insurance companies are denying so many claims that when you go to the state, they only want to take the claims from the patient. What's going to happen if someone might be paralyzed, or you have an infant, or
Yeah.
people are just too busy? So luckily, with the help of my senator, my New York State senator,
Right.
I was able to work with the state on it. But long story short, the state went over it and they said, "Look, according to this policy, it says you cannot see an out-of-network provider." It was an HMO.
Right.
So they said, "We cannot turn this case." So I went back to the doctor, and I told the doctor, and not the billing company, because I was also dealing with the billing company the doctor hired.
Right.
I went back to the doctor and I said, "Look," I said, "this is what the response was, because you did surgery on someone who you were out of network with the insurance company."
Right.
So he was nice enough. He says, "Okay, Adria, who started the surgery?" And I told him. And then he says to me, "I will charge them nothing."
Wow. See that?
So that family alone, I saved them over $250,000. And I have to say, I'm honored to do this work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So you decided that you were going to become involved with helping people, and I know that you worked for Douglas Winslow.
I worked with Douglas.
Yes,
Douglas.
to write this book, right? And you also have a quote on here from Ralph Nader.
Ralph Nader, this is what he wrote on the book. "Who hasn't been bewildered and outraged by lengthy, inscrutable medical bills and the tricky ways of the health insurers? This book shows how commercial crime hunters, as when there is conscious overbilling or denial of claims, and tough negotiators go to work on those sellers who deceive, gouge, or deny your legitimate rights to honest, skillful, and prompt services. Learn what to watch out for in this volume by authors who know the inside ways of sellers who try to take you to the cleaners."
Right, definitely.
And in the next few weeks is going to be out. This is the international edition,
Okay,
and Doug Winslow Cooper was my co-writer on both books.
right.
And the new book the book that's coming out, the U.S. edition, is called "Solved: Curing Your Medical Insurance Problems."
Cool. And so now you also helped Douglas Cooper with his claim.
He had a case.
Okay.
It was involving his past employer, where they no longer wanted to pay. And this story is in the book. It's about him and his wife. They didn't want to pay for his wife's home health care, and his bills are exorbitant. He has been receiving home health care now for the last 11 years, and about 3 to 4 years ago, he was connected with me through an elder law attorney. And I said to Dr. Cooper, I said, I really don't know if I can help you because you worked for a major corporation.
Right.
It was in a self-insured company. And in the new laws for New York State, which is the New York State surprise bill law, it indicates right there, an out-of-network provider, you can't fight them. The state can't go near them.
Right.
So what happened here is I told him every step I recommend he takes.
Uh-huh.
I even sent him to a nonprofit organization who does the same work that I do.
Right.
They couldn't help him. I was pretty sure there would be no help for this. But he did a very smart thing. He wrote another book about his wife. He sent it to his past employer. And he also had it published in our local newspaper. The past employer then decided to continue paying the bills. And again, that was 3 to 4 years ago. And they are still, thank goodness, still paying his bills.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many cases I hear about where people are just overwhelmed. They work all their lives and they think that they're covered with medical insurance. And then when a disaster hits, it wipes the family out.
I have a friend, a very dear friend of mine, who I visited 3 times when she was in the hospital. She was just in there recently. And she was in the hospital for about a week. And her bills were a bit over $45,000. I visited her 3 times. I said to her, I really want to get a case manager in here to make sure that you're going to be covered. She's only about 50 years old. She's not even on Medicare yet.
Right.
I was in there 3 times to see her. About the 3rd day that she was in there, the caseworker came in to see her. Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. Also, believe it or not, the CEO came to visit her. And it's maybe because she works for this major insurance broker.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, 10 to 14 days after she gets home, she gets a letter from the insurance company saying that she wasn't ill enough and therefore they're not going to cover her for her hospitalization. She called me up. She was flipping out. She says,
Yeah, of
Adria,
course.
please help me. And I told her exactly what to do. I told her, I want you to go back to the hospital and speak to them about this and explain the conversations that you and I had, the conversations you had
Right.
with the case manager, that they should be paying this bill.
Right.
And she just called me 2 nights ago crying how happy she was that with the advice I gave her,
Right.
it's been taken care of.
Oh, good.
I am so happy.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've gotten quite a few awards, haven't you? For
Well-
some of your work that you're doing?
Well, yeah, it started out in 2008. I received the Insurance Professional of the Year Award from the Insurance Professionals of Orange County.
Okay.
And then in 2009, I was starting to open up MedWise billing, and I received the 2009 Leadership Orange Pinnacle Award. The 2009, the Pinnacle Leadership Orange Award.
Wow. Very nice.
And then in December of 2013, I received the WCBS Women's Achievement Award in New York City. And I was just amazingly honored that I would receive this award.
Well, you've saved people so much money.
Right.
And worked to educating. I mean, you also, you work with attorneys.
Right.
You work with law guardians. You work with a lot of people, and you work with individuals if individuals have a problem.
Right. And even some doctors who I've worked with, they've asked me to help. Like, they might have had a client where they thought that client was going to be covered, and now
Right.
they're not. And I'm amazed how wonderful some of these doctors are, where they care about even the finances of their patients.
Right.
And they've asked me to come in and help their patient
Right.
with their case.
Good. Good. So, all right, and you got the Volunteer of the Year award for autism, I think.
Right. I have to say 25% of the people who have autism have epilepsy.
Yeah. Oh, so that's
And I've been working, I have a dear friend whose son is now 20 years old, and for the last, I would say somewhere 12 to 15 years, I've been working with the autism group of Orange County.
right.
Every event that I'm available for, I'm there to help them. I volunteer as much as I can. I've brought my children into it. And when they recently had the move-a-thon,
Right.
I donated books and sold them and gave them the entire profit.
Now that move-a-thon was just recent, right?
Right.
It was about 2 weeks ago.
It was Columbus Day weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you work actually with not-for-profit corporations. If they hold a book signing for you, you give them the profits of your books.
Absolutely. And
Right.
if any of them want me to come speak, a long time ago I spoke in front of the Epilepsy Foundation of America, and I was honored to be there to talk about my past and how lucky I have been to have surgery for epilepsy and to be seizure free.
Right. Now you have 2 books coming out.
So this book, The Multi-Payer Medicine Nightmare Made in the USA, this is the international edition, Multi-Payer Medicine Nightmare Made in the USA, and soon will be Solve Curing Your Medical Insurance Problems,
Right.
which is the US edition.
Okay. Okay, so this is more the international edition.
Well, it's pretty much the same. The interior is almost exactly the same. What happened was when I spoke to Mr. Ralph Nader, he said, Adria, I would like to take this book,
Right.
Solve Curing Your Medical Insurance Problems, and have another book out, an international edition. The interior is almost exactly the same, but they're just 2 different book titles.
Right. Okay. Cool.
This gentleman from CBS filmed me last May
Okay.
or April, and they had me on CBS News in Albany.
Uh-huh.
So I spoke to him about inpatient, outpatient, under observation.
Right.
And because what's happening is someone could go in the hospital, and there are times where they're not told until either they leave the hospital or while they're in the hospital that they might be in there not as an inpatient but an outpatient under observation.
Oh, okay.
Now I thought, this has been going on for, I would say, at least 2 to 3 years. And I visited 4 hospitals twice. I was in New York State, and I was also in South Carolina. And I went back to them each time. And each time, there was one hospital here in Orange County that is letting the people know. I don't know if they're doing it with people who are not seniors, but they give them these papers to sign when they come in. And on one of the papers, it talks about you might be outpatient under observation. But imagine yourself. You're nauseous, you're dizzy, you're feeling miserable.
Right.
When you have those papers in front of you, and a lot of them are full-page papers, are you going to take 3 hours reading everything and making sure you understand it? And it's very hard for someone who's so ill, who can't understand what they're signing. So most people, when they go in the hospital, they just sign whatever's in front of them.
Right.
And that's what's on one of the papers. So I'm happy this hospital's informing them, but I don't think they're verbally telling people. And then, that's only one hospital out of 4 I visited. So a lot of them are not telling the people until later on in the process. And even when I mentioned earlier about my friend, she never found out anything until she came home
Right.
10 to 14 days later and got and received this letter in the mail saying that you were not ill enough, so therefore you're not covered.
Right. So basically, if you're sick and you're going to be going into the hospital, you have to make sure that they're admitting you and that they're not just treating you as an outpatient under observation.
Okay, so let me clarify what you just said.
Okay.
I have a very dear friend who used to be a judge in New York City. I knew he was going into the hospital for knee surgery. And 2 weeks before he went in, I had dinner with him and his wife. And I said, I want you to be really cautious about what's going on with being a patient and inpatient and being outpatient under observation. And he said to me, Adria, I'm not worried at all. They said I'm going to be admitted. So, all right. He goes in on a Thursday. Friday evening or afternoon, his wife finds out that even though they didn't inform him ahead of time, and this was a hospital in New York City, they said to him, you're not an inpatient, you're outpatient under observation. And this was after he had the surgery, either Thursday afternoon or Friday morning. Long story short, I had 3 conversations with his wife that Saturday, and she called me back Sunday morning and said, Adria, they made him an inpatient on Saturday. So you need, for you, the way it works is this. For you to be covered, because he had knee surgery and he knew he was going to have to go to a rehab or a nursing home afterwards. And they even made arrangements where he was going to go. But now, he wasn't going to be covered for it because she found out on Friday that he was an outpatient under observation. I told her all the steps I recommend she takes. She calls him back Sunday morning. She says, Adria, they made him an inpatient last night.
Oh, wow.
He's coming out on Monday. Saturday, Sunday, he was coming out on Saturday, Sunday, Monday. He was coming out on Tuesday. He had his 3 midnights in, and therefore he was going to be covered for the hospitalization. Wow. Because what's happening now is when you are an outpatient under observation, and if you have Medicare, they don't cover you for Part A, which is the hospitalization and the medication while you're in the hospital. They'll cover you for Part B, which might be the blood work that was done or pathology or if you had an x-ray, but they're not going to cover you for the hospitalization and the medication while you're in the hospital.
That doesn't seem reasonable to me. I mean, how can they admit you to the hospital, admit you,
right,
and then tell you that you're really not?
Right, and so a lot of people, I mean, look, this just happened recently. This happened less than a year ago with my friend in New York. They didn't tell him until that Friday night or that Friday afternoon, and he was in there on Thursday.
Yeah.
You know, and luckily he found out then, because there have been situations, and I have referred these situations out to major newspaper publishers. It just happened recently.
Right.
Where one of my attorneys, who I also deal with, the person wasn't told until she was in the nursing home that she wasn't covered.
Holy mackerel.
Okay, and then they were able to reduce the bills down, but I even tell attorneys. I tell just individuals, because they might have a family member who's going in the hospital.
Right.
You have to make sure that that person's an inpatient, not an outpatient under observation. So even for you to be covered, even if you're not going into a nursing home or rehab, for you to be covered for the room and board at the hospital and the medication, you have to have 2 midnights as an inpatient. And midnights means you have to be there at midnight, 12 o'clock midnight. You have to be there before then to be considered, and you have to be admitted to be considered to be an inpatient. So before midnight, admitted, that would be your first midnight. Then the following midnight, you have to be in there. And then you should be covered for the hospitalization, the medication, but you need 3 midnights to go into a rehab or nursing home.
And where can we find you?
www.medicalinsuranceadvocacy.com. It will take you right to my website.
Okay, very good.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
I've been looking for a house with no walls.